Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. So today's guest is an awesome guest. He is actually number 8 of the 18, Josh Bishop. Josh is a very successful entrepreneur who is actually not only got a very successful business, he's going through an acquisition of another business and some big things due to go ahead. Now, if you hear some of the noise in the background, I apologise. That's because of the studio and what's going on. So, Josh, let's know a little bit about yourself. What is your business? What do you do?
Ricky, yeah, thanks for the introduction. We're an engineering support company based in Corby, Northamptonshire. The business itself has been going for 20 years, and I have actually been actively involved in a buyout for the last 4 years, which is recently completed.
So was you working for the company beforehand then? Or
yeah, so the company was part of 2 companies, which was effectively run as a group, and I purchased the business via a managerial buyout from the existing owners, the same owners of which I'd worked for the best part of 14 years across the other sister company. So we've been, for the last 4 years, we've been going on a massive development curve. We've been trying to find our strengths within the business, and also just look across the company. We've always been a reseller. We've always been a company that would supply items to the industry, but constantly maintaining the fact that we had the underpinning knowledge to also utilize and assist in the repairs of the machinery, or even fault finding in people's processes, and generally just making process engineering better.
Okay. So who's an example of some of your clients that you do that for?
So we do a lot of work with Tata Steel, okay. Big steel mills. We've actively worked with them to improve systems that were constantly breaking down, constantly causing downtime to production. We've worked alongside them and conducted fault finding studies on their machines to actually pinpoint where their downtime was occurring and out engineer those supplies. Now, previously, as a company, we would have said, that's fine, we'll supply you the goods that keep breaking and we'll just keep doing it. Now we've taken it a step further. We've said, we will supply you the goods when you need them, but also let's look at the patterns. Let's look at why these things keep happening and sort it.
Because it's quite expensive for these companies if they have downtime.
Hugely expensive. I mean, an example for some of the stuff that we've done with Tata Steel is that one of the mills, if it was down, it was losing about £10,000 an hour. Okay. And that was just in production costs, not in the cost of labour, cost of parts to replace, costs of running
so you're
costs.
Ultimately saving those companies huge amounts of money.
Huge amounts of money, yeah. And that was an area of the market that we did subliminally, but we never actively made people aware of it. So we've really been, you talk about our superpowers, and we've really been concentrating on making the customer aware that we are more than your average reseller. We not only can we supply the parts, we can fit the parts, we can fault find the parts, we can repair the parts. Really. Yes, exactly. And you mentioned at the start about the acquisition. We are currently going through another round of discussions with another local company, and they are also a very technical company. They have a fantastic offering, and it's an offering that all will be revealed in the coming months about that acquisition. But their offering is something that can really help with the fault finding and maintenance of these critical machines. You know, these things that cost these companies thousands of pounds to maintain. Their offering is something that can really help look after that.
And that'll be a big compliment for your business anyway. So it'll be a big game changer.
It's huge. I always say to people, it's the equivalent of having a nice car and not having it serviced correctly. You know, or not doing servicing at all. At some point, you're going to be going down the motorway and it is going to break down.
So how have you found the current climate? Because obviously with COVID, it's affected loads of businesses right now, and your business is growing, and you've had the buyout, you've got the buyout going on, you've had the buying of the business on the management buyout, and you actually are on probably a steep growth curve and a learning curve in a lot of the things that you're doing.
Yeah.
So how have you how's COVID affected you, and how have you had to adapt in your business for it?
I think the same scenario for most businesses is that there was a point in time this year that it affected us badly. I would say we were in the early phases of the lockdown. We almost didn't notice that anything was going on. Business was so good. And then sort of July time, it hit us hard. May, June was tapering off, and July it hit us hard. But it almost created a vortex for me to say, we can't be this delicate. You know, we have to change. We have to look at what we offer. And that's when I started saying, well, what is going to be hurting our customers most now? You know, what is hurting them at the moment? Downtime,
right.
Lack of staff, lack of training, lack of availability on parts.
But that downtime is actually quite good for you, because if they're in downtime, you could go in and fix.
Yeah, but
and sort of things now. Or?
It is. You're right, but then equally, our main point of sale is actually in the preventative maintenance.
Right.
You know, so preventing that downtime from happening, which again is good for any company of our sort, because if people understand preventative maintenance, they're in a headspace where they understand the value of that machine and the value of its time running, and they understand that looking after that machine far outweighs the cost of not doing anything.
Yeah, and also it can cost them millions across global
untold
spaces.
Amounts of money. Yeah, but quite equally, we've spoken about what we did, how lockdown affected us. It was difficult, but it gave us an opportunity to really review the business and really look at where our weak points were, where our strong points were even, and capitalise on those. You know, but we have now began a full growth curve. We're going into prototype machinery. You know, we've now created a legacy for ourselves locally, where we're having companies come to us out of recommendation with brand new concept ideas, and we're turning those into realities.
Okay.
To then become future machines that we'll maintain.
Right. Okay.
You know, so we are looking to create the full package for these people, and we've got a very loyal customer base.
So who's an example of some of those? You said Tata Steel, obviously.
Tata Steel, yeah. We deal with everyone, right from sole traders that are men and women working on the tools, right at the rough end of it all, all the way up to multi-billion-pound businesses. And the reason we deal with people across that spectrum is because our offering is so universal. It doesn't sit to the middleman or to the lower end of the spectrum, because if, put it this way, take an example being Weetabix.
Okay.
Every single person on the planet at some point during lockdown was eating Weetabix. And we were assisting that company in keeping those machines running, you know. And those
sort of companies would be massive, like on full capacity right now, because people are ordering left, right, and centre.
100%. And we've got relationships that span such a long time with these companies that for us to sit down and talk with them, we're talking on a level playing field. We're talking from a point of trust, not a point of sale. And the reason for that is because we prove our methodology. You know, we look after these machines with science and engineering, not with sales and marketing.
And it's the technology and the adaptiveness that you've had to implement. Because particularly in your sector, there can be in quite a lot of legacy issues. And actually, unless you evolve and implement new systems and new things, actually it ends up being quite problematic. I mean, do you find legacy issues causing a problem? Yeah,
it does. And there's a lot of stigma in our industry that everything's always been done the way it's been done, and that's how it should be done. You know, and for an industry and engineering as a whole, if you called engineering an industry, the UK engineering sector is changing like light speed. but the companies within that sector are not. Right. And that's sometimes the delay. That's sometimes the disparity is between the way the industry wants us to change and the way that the actual person at the end can change. And we sit quite comfortably in the grey matter. We're like the vehicle that helps that change be moved in our specific bubble of the industry, and
so if we go back,
where
would you say to people, if they wanted to come into this industry, or if they wanted to do a buyout, or maybe they were doing what you were doing before, would you recommend setting up a business or having a business or doing the management buyout? What in fact, actually, before we do that, what advice would you give your 10-year-old self?
What advice would I give my 10-year-old self? I would say care less about the situation, care less about what individuals think about you, and care more about the impact you're making on people and the things around you.
Okay, it's quite a cool answer. It's a good answer.
Yeah.
So that's what you'd say to your 10-year-old self?
That's what I'd say.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
So what? I suppose that advice also would go to anyone who's an entrepreneur coming into any industry or setting business, because that's actually resonates across the board, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah. I think if you've got entrepreneurial tendencies, then some of the things I'll say will resonate with you anyway, because you will be thinking these thoughts, you'll be having these dreams, you'll be having these ideas at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd just say, if you have an opportunity to do a buyout and the buyout makes sense, it's such a good step. For the right mindset and the right person, it's such a good step.
And it's a ready-made business, isn't it, as well? So you can actually, without the emotion being tied into it, you can actually evolve it and take the best bits from other areas of your experience.
And that has been such a strength point. I think that has really, really helped force us through COVID, is that we had strength in numbers from the years of trading. I think if I was a new startup during COVID, it would have been a much more different story.
Well, I think the other thing is with COVID is that COVID has tested everybody, but everybody is in the same position. I mean, some companies are obviously thriving and they're pushing in that space, but actually everybody's in a similar boat. So anyone who says it's easy is delusional, because it is actually, business now is tougher than it ever needed to be. And you actually have to think even bigger than you ever did to get anywhere near where you previously were. You're obviously you are on a growth curve, and you've got some big numbers and some big things that you want to do. So what does success look like for you?
I think if I was to rewind it 4 years ago, when I first started this journey, success for me looked like growth in numbers in the business, a huge offering to our customers, a huge, big, fantastic location for our customers to come to. And elements of that still exist now. But I would say one thing I've learned through COVID, and one thing that will pave the way for Eastern Power's journey going forward, is all of your success can be mapped out in the strategic partnerships you have with your best suppliers and your best people in your team and stuff like that. The partnerships are almost more important than the products you're selling, because in times like this, you can't just employ any person to do any particular job that springs to mind, but you can find somebody trustworthy and loyal that can do that for you and do it well. Okay. And that's where I would say success for me looks like growth, which we're on, tidying up our systems and processes so that we can really deal with any extra throughput that we might win from a business point of view.
Because you've invested quite heavily in your systems and processes.
Oh, massively. We've spent a lot of money. Yeah.
I mean, old systems cost money, but you've got a lot of new systems, cutting edge systems.
We have.
Quite a young team, actually. You've got a new team. I mean, there are lots of things going on, and actually, I'll put a link below to your website. You actually are having a new website, and you've just gone through some new branding. So that's coming imminently. When's that launch?
We're hoping, we're preparing for launch on Halloween.
Oh, okay.
So hopefully it's not going to be too spooky.
Okay, so that's the launch of the new site.
That's the launch of the new site.
Okay, and so your perfect customer really is just covering manufacturing. Is there any particular sector?
Our perfect customer is production and manufacturing industry. The people that have had their maintenance teams decimated over the years, the people that struggle with supply of goods and non-technical assistance on those repairs and those goods, and genuinely the people in our industry that have a problem that they can't sort.
Okay, so that's in
bring it at us.
And so if we go forward, what do you want to be when you grow up?
What do I
when
want?
You're older, yeah.
I want to be a pop star.
You want to be a pop star?
I'm joking.
Okay. Well, hey, you can be whatever you want.
My little boy would say I want to be a Power Ranger.
You want to be a Power Ranger? Okay.
What do I want to be when I grow up? I want to be... What do I want to be when I grow up? I want to be somebody that my children are proud of.
Okay. So as a family man, you've got 2 children?
2 children.
How old are they?
I've got Phoebe, my little princess, who's coming up for 5 years old. And I've got Jude, my little best buddy, who is 3 years old. And Phoebe, I've got to say, I'm really sorry, because I did speak to your dad the other day, and he told me that it was during your film session, and we had to. We were talking, so you've got some popcorn to have. I got told off, and he got told off, and so very, very sorry that I spoke to your dad during the film. It won't happen again, Phoebe. I'm sorry.
No, it won't happen again. Okay. So in the world, I think lots of exciting things happening. You are thinking bigger. You are looking eventually to go to the States. You were saying about the States.
Yeah, I would like to. So
we've got loads of friends across the pond.
Mm.
So what sort of companies across the pond?
So the dream for the company, and this is something that hasn't changed, COVID or not. The dream for the company is to become a one-stop shop for all engineering and production issues and supply. So it will be the Argos of the engineering industry.
Okay.
That is something. That is an offering that is remote. That is an offering that is universally useful to any companies, and companies in the USA are like 3 times the size of companies in the UK, and that's the main reason why I'd like to be over there. Okay.
So
plus they have beaches, and they
do have some beaches,
not very nice.
And Miami beaches, are pretty
and Miami beaches are lovely, and ours are like sort of only nice for like 2 months of the year. So. Bournemouth is good. Bournemouth, okay. Sorry, Bournemouth.
So obviously for you now, you're taking over the business. Now you've got like a team. You're growing your team.
Yeah.
Business leadership, and that is a challenge. I know you've been doing all sorts of different things there. What other advice would you give maybe an engineer or someone who's thinking about coming into the industry, additional to what you said earlier? You know, what's the one big piece of advice? Sorry for Richard in the back. He's taken over the meeting over there.
One big piece of advice I would give to engineers coming into the industry is only do what you're good at. Do what you're good at, do it well, and then if you want to expand into other places, learn it, become good at it, and then expand into other places. We have a lot of what I would call contamination in the industry, where we have people that quite innocently offer what they believe is a good service, and to the right person it might be, but our industry is a very dangerous industry if it's done wrong.
Yeah. Well,
and that's why,
and very expensive.
Very expensive, and that's why we guarantee that we would not take on something that we weren't good at doing, and we wouldn't even approach something we weren't good at doing. But with our strategic partnerships, we would pass that on to the right people. And it's about that is the advice I would give. It's about knowing when to say yes and when to say no.
Okay. And how can people get hold of you?
On all of the feeds, social media, Facebook, LinkedIn. It's at EPM Engineering SAS, and
SAS.
yeah, supplies and services. but it just came out cool like SAS. I liked it.
The discipline of business, boom.
And you can find us, Eastern Power and Motion, in Corby. You can get hold of us on the telephone at any time, in business hours, and call us. We're always happy to help, and even if it's just for a bit of advice in the short term to pick our brains, call us. We're a friendly bunch of people and we're ready to help.
And I want to ask, why are you joining the 18?
Why am I joining the 18? The last 4 years created so much confusion to me, and a lot of things I just dived in and just went for it. I just thought, do you know what? I've got the guts. Let's just go for this.
I mean, it's not for everyone though, is it? The 18? No, it's not.
And there's so much I would have done differently, but equally, you learn from it. And I think the one thing that the 18 offers is the 18 offers a place where you're going to be held to account, and you're going to be pushed.
And it's quite funny because some of the other numbers are going to be watching this and they're going to sit and they'll be laughing and reviewing, because it isn't an easy space. In fact, it's some pretty epic businesses that you'll see and you'll share. And if there's anyone on my network that needs Josh's services, and just connect with him, see his story, see his journey. His business is booming and he is growing, and he's actually holding me account. He's on a training session. We've got a challenge going on right now till, we said May, didn't we? March.
Don't give yourself any more time.
March. You've seen the training video, you've seen the fitness videos. We're on like a proper fitness push right now as well. But he is smashing his business. He's got coaches and mentors and all sorts of people that he uses in his business, helping his business push. He's looked at all sorts of learnings. He's just joined the 18 to be with those businesses that are just giving him a kick in as well. And he'll get a kick in from me too. So the 18 isn't for everybody. It is very much pushing and pushing forward. What book, in fact, actually thinking about it, before we fly, we always ask, what book would you advise or recommend someone? Listen to any audio books that you think are pretty epic. Actually, Josh writes his own books as well. He was talking about 3 kids' books that he's going to be launching imminently, and we sort of discussed how that's going to work and what that looks like. So you'll soon see them out on the feed, and there's no excuse for you not to buy them. So that is something that I want you all to look at in the future. But
what book would I recommend? For the message, I would say Delivering Happiness.
Okay.
Although there is some parts of the book I don't agree with fully, I do really like. It's a really feel-good message, and it gets you thinking.
That's a Zappos,
lot. Yeah, it gets you thinking a lot about the way you run your company.
Was it 4 billion or 2 billion they sold to Amazon, didn't they?
Yeah, they sold to.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great book on culture, and
it is.
I actually listened to that on the way to Disneyland Paris when I went on a coach. I'll never do that again in terms of going on a coach to Disneyland Paris. But it's a 10.5-hour audiobook.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah.
Wow.
But the main one I would say is Productivity Ninja.
Productivity Ninja. Okay, what's cool about that one?
It just gets you in a totally different headspace for we've all been there where we've got notes everywhere and we're trying to keep up with everything. It just focuses in on your systems and how you should organise yourself. You're not talking about organising your company, you're talking about organising yourself.
And who's that by?
Can't remember. But it's a very well-known book, Productivity Ninja.
Okay. There's only like one of them.
There's only one of them. Find it out there. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So be sure to connect with Josh. Get him on LinkedIn. Get him on the site. I will put a link above below. The other members of the 18, yes, you will be sharing your stuff soon, so you can laugh and smile, but you will be out here chatting and saying about your business. Keep safe, keep well, have an amazing day, weekend, wherever you are in the world, and be sure to watch this space. This man is on fire and he is pushing his business, and everyone in the engineering and space in my network, be sure to connect with him because he's doing great things and is a very superb future leader in this area. Have a good one. Keep safe and take care.